and welcome to Remember That, a podcast for nostalgic Brits. I'm your host today, Twilight, and joining me today we have...
Hi, I'm Bhav.
Hi, I'm Ali.
Cool, so hang on, let me get my notes, because otherwise I'll forget what I'm talking about and we'll end up on a tangent. So today we're talking about bedtime TV across 2 UK children's channels. So we're going to be looking at the types of shows that they aired during these times, songs, and their presentation. So we're going to start with the channel that probably most people would associate with having a bedtime hour, which is CBeebies. CBeebies is the BBC's preschool network, for anyone that doesn't know. And I created a playlist of a bunch of shows and songs. So what we'll be looking at today, and some other things as well, we're not just stuck with this list and what was on the playlist. We might branch out, but we did all specifically look at Goodbye Sun, Hello Moon, and The Time Has Come. We also focused on some shows such as 64's Your Lane, Charlie and Lola, In the Night Garden, and yeah, we just took a look at what it is that they showed on that channel and their songs, and yeah, just the overall. So what were people's thoughts on we'll start with the shows themselves. What were people's thoughts on the shows that CBeebies puts on during their bedtime hour from the past? Probably some of them are still on. I think they still use In the Night Garden, which we had on our list.
Definitely a good one. I think In the Night Garden's probably the most nostalgic for me because it was also on like BBC iPlayer, which means like I could watch it like anytime. So it was one I enjoyed a lot when I was younger, and watching it back now, it's such like I love all the sound effects that went into it, and like just the like mild chaotic energy of the characters being played.
It's such a fun show because it's just nuts. But I think as well, like I always say this because I always argue. So we have a mutual friend called Snake Staff, and you may see him on a podcast sometime. But there's one thing we have this conversation where he thinks like In the Night Garden is like completely pointless and just terrible. He just outwardly hates it, and I'm like, no, I promise you it serves a purpose, but I don't know if he believes me, but it does. It is designed to relax kids.
Something I forgot about In the Night Garden was the like the random mid-sections of music that all come together at the end, like with the birds and like but the birds don't actually make bird sounds. They make like musical instrument noises when they move.
I remember the toucan having a really weird sound.
Yeah, and that was so fun.
In terms of In the Night Garden, I think my opinion is totally different because it was one of those shows that actually creeped me out and I avoided it at all costs.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see why.
Yeah.
The main thing that used to creep me out was, I think it was like the intro or something where Iggle Piggle was like on a boat and like falling asleep on the boat and just like sailing out to sea. I'm sorry, that's not safe, and that does not make me want to go to sleep. But I can see that, I can see the other side of things, that people found it quite wholesome and, just like a simple show to put you to sleep. But I was just that one kid that just, I could not sit and watch the show.
It's a strange show.
For some reason, even though I guess it's less creepy in reality, like, I always found Weibaloo much creepier.
I hated Weibaloo.
Like,
that's coming
also,
up.
Also, it didn't make sense that it was a bedtime show, but it was in the middle of the day. Like,
yeah, they put it on, I think, because it was, like, I guess kind of relaxing, but it wasn't, you can tell it wasn't designed. It was designed, wasn't it designed to teach kids, like, yoga? Like...
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like that's what they did. I feel like they did yoga in that. Like, Weibaloo,
Weibaloo isn't still on.
I feel like it was newer. I don't actually know when it's from, but I feel like I was a little old for it when it came out. Okay, 2009. Yeah, that's when I was, like, coming out of CBeebies, I guess. Because I must have been about 7, so I was, like, not watching Weibaloo.
And I was just gonna say, I've like heard of Weibaloo, like I knew of it, and then when I watched sort of episodes recently to sort of familiarize myself with it. One thing that I noticed, I don't know if this goes across BBC, not BBC, CBeebies.
The whole BBC.
Yeah, the whole BBC. CBeebies is that like there's more live action and natural surroundings than animation, and I don't know whether that just sort of helps with like kids trying to like wind down and go to sleep because they're not sort of getting those like garish
I've
colours.
noticed.
I don't know.
I've noticed like now, like I don't actively watch CBeebies, so I could be very wrong. So if you're somebody that is watching CBeebies like because you like it, or you're a parent and you've got kids and you're listening, you feel free to like at me on Twitter and say, Twilight, you are very wrong. But I think nowadays they have shifted quite a bit towards animation more than, because I think there still are some live action shows, but in the Night Garden I think they still show, but it's like stop production. Like they haven't made a new episode in quite a few years. And
That'd be interesting.
I think Way Below is this. I think I've just looked it up. Then I think it said its final episode was 2012. So they don't even make them shows anymore. So I think they've shifted like newer stuff. They've shifted more towards animation, but I do agree that the live action stuff I think is a bit more peaceful.
Yeah.
Because, and
To be
maybe
fair, I
that's why
thought-
they've kept it around. Because we have got some animated shows that we did also check out. 64 Zoo Lane, Charlie and Lola are completely animated shows that, but they were, again, 64 Zoo Lane was definitely designed to be shown at like night. Like you can tell this is a bedtime story
By
show.
every single part of it,
But then you've got like Charlie and Lola, which isn't necessarily, but I think it's toned down enough. Like it has its unique art style, but it's not like brightly coloured, too in your
They're
face.
kind of more muted. I guess with that kind of animation.
I was trying to think of something that was on CBeebies that maybe would be like, you wouldn't show that and like the bedtime hour because it would be like intense.
I would choose Waverloo for that.
So you're like, no Way Below before bed. So I think let's talk a little bit about the more animated ones, so 64 Zoo Lane, Charlie and Lola. So 64 Zoo Lane, as I was saying before, I think, you know, it is kind of designed to be that show that was easy to put on late, and it was a bedtime story essentially. Like it was about a girl quite literally going to her neighbours in the zoo to hear a bedtime story, and
then go to bed.
the theme to 64 Zoo Lane is so cute though. Like I love the
I
theme.
absolutely loved 64 Zoo Lane.
For me, I rarely saw it, but it was always one I remembered, so I was just always like wondering when I'd see it again. And then one day I never did until recently.
That's so sad.
Like I completely forgot its existence. Well, I didn't, but like for a few years I like forgot about it until I heard like someone singing the theme song out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my god, I know this.
64 Zoo Lane is like it's just wholesome, good wholesome energy.
And the colours are nice.
Yes.
Yeah, the toned down colours, like what we said before, like they're just like not too in your face and not too bright. And like I really like the voice acting and the art style as well, and it actually had some like decent humor to it. Like even like when I was watching it again recently, it just seemed I was actually like finding it funny, which is always good. It's good when it's kind of almost like timeless.
Yeah.
In that way.
I think they reran it as well for years. Like, I don't think it's in the lineup anymore, but I don't think it was that long ago it was removed from the lineup. It's peaceful. They do, I think for the most part, their CBeebies do a good job of picking shows that are relatively peaceful to put on at night. Well, it's like at night. For us it's probably like evening, because we're talking like between like usually like 6 and 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I think they're good at that. And again, as well, Charlie and Lola, again, it's got quite toned down colours. It's not bright. It's again, it's just a generally like now that one's not like directly aimed at bedtime like in the Night Garden and 64 Zoo Lane are. It's a show that can
like
be on at any day.
Down stories.
Yeah, the stories are like
just chill
vibes. So I think the show translated that very well as well, to get in the really chill energy.
And I think it was nice that it was a show that was like focused on siblings.
Yeah.
And like it was just really simple, like kind of hand-drawn like animation that it just like it connects like with kids in that way. I also never understood the hype for strawberry milk.
Yeah. I wasn't into milk in general, so
True.
I
Yeah.
didn't want it strawberry flavoured either. So.
Yeah. Well, chocolate milk's good. I'd always choose chocolate over strawberry.
So they were like the main shows that I remember seeing. The other one, that we haven't spoken about is Storymakers, which a lot of the time was the last show on before they like sang the song and closed the channel down for the night.
Yeah.
Storymakers a lot of the time was the very last thing on. So do people remember that one? Were people fans of Storymakers?
I well when like you mentioned it before, I had to remind myself of it. I was like, what's Storymakers? And then I watched like the YouTube clip of it and I was like, oh my god, I remember Storymakers. I remember like the girl on the like the bouncy ball and like the whole like title sequence and then the little stories that they told with the different characters. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this.
I used to really like it. And like I always remembered Blue Cow from it.
I think I was often scared of like a lot of like live action ways of like portraying characters like that weren't actually real people. So like claymation, like, and puppets, just for some reason my brain was like no. But I do remember a lot of the actual story narrators, but I don't remember the puppets somehow, which is really strange.
You blocked
that
Jelly and Jackson out of your mind.
Yeah, I just remember this one person sitting reading the story by themselves. And there's no puppets
just
there
like
in that exact setting.
no
I
puppets.
recognized the setting and people reading stories on that little thing, but there was no puppets. So when I watched it back, I was like, oh, I just completely erased them from my memory.
Oh,
I just decided no.
they were fun. I think Storymakers, again, I think it was pretty well designed. I don't know whether I would say that one was designed to be shown late at night, because I definitely remember it being on a lot during the day as well. But it does, I think it works well. Again, it's like simple storytelling, and it's like it takes place at night as well, because it's meant to be like the library's closed for the day, and then some person will come out and be like, I am, what do they call them? I can't remember, like, but they're like, they make up the Storymakers, and like Jelly and Jackson will appear, and then they'll have their like the human of the day, which I think on the episode that I sent, it was Danny John Jules who played a character called Milton, and he did it a lot.
I found it interesting that like that particular episode that was in the playlist had kids like basically the Jelly and Jackson started like bouncing around like bouncy balls, and I was like, this is a bit strange because aren't kids supposed to like wind down at this time? But what I thought about was that, well, it kind of does work, because if there's still kids that have that like remaining energy in them, that could like sort of start to tire them out. I suppose like that was another way to look at it.
I think a lot of what CBeebies like does is they seem to whoever's like in charge and whoever's picking the shows at the time seems to know what is relaxing for the most part, and what's gonna, like, In the Night Garden is usually one of the first shows on, because I think it sets the tone. And they see that as like, this sets the tone for relaxing and chilling out, and then the shows just get gradually more like bedtime story-y and sleepier until that kid is like, the kid is ready for bed. That's what I feel like the goal is. And then of course they also have presenters still, and they have songs, which I think we should discuss the songs of CBeebies. So the first one that plays currently is Goodbye Sun, Hello Moon, which is like the first song that when they go into, so from when I remember stuff, they used to I think Big Fun Time was the and this is probably like the more towards the mid to late 2000s, because I remember watching stuff more with my sister, I think, than watching CBeebies on my own, because I was like 2 or 3. and CBeebies was also really early days. Like, I am roughly like 2 months older than CBeebies as a channel, so I don't have much memory of super early CBeebies, but definitely when my sister was younger, there was the Big Fun Time block, and they used to play Goodbye Sun, Hello Moon when Big Fun Time had ended, and then you were in the bedtime hour, so that's that song. We also had a song from way earlier, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the routine one.
Is it like the Are You Ready for Bed one?
Yeah, Are You Ready for Bed, which I do not remember that one
God,
ever existing.
I need to play that every night before I go to bed.
But yeah, and then of course they had The Time Has Come, which sounds really dramatic for a...
It's the end of
but
everything.
It's the end of a lovely day, apparently. So what do we think about the songs? Where are we at with CBeebies and their choice of songs?
The routine
I
ones
don't
definitely...
remember them.
Fair
to be
enough.
honest.
I think the Nick Jr. one's probably more like memorable from my side, but the
Awesome.
when I was listening back to remember more of the CBeebies ones, the routine one was just I was just laughing so hard because everything was like, did you remember to brush your teeth? Did you remember to wash your face? And it's just, I forget, like, I need to always remind myself to do that, and it's like, I just need to listen to the song before I go to bed every
Just
night.
the song all the time.
Because-
Well, I mean, in terms of how I feel about the songs, I do like them. I think that they work for what they want to do. However, the only one that I remembered properly going into this would have been the last one, because there was so many different versions of it, and I'm like, I remember the presenters all singing the time has come to say goodnight, and I'm like, okay, I remember that, but I did have to jog my memory of the others quite a bit. And then I guess the final thing that I do believe sets CBeebies apart from the rest of the kids channels at night, and that is CBeebies bedtime stories,
yes,
which are interesting. So for anyone that doesn't know, CBeebies bedtime story, they get a celebrity guest of some sort to come in and read a bedtime story. It's one of like the latest things on. I can't remember if that is like, I think it maybe is now, that is the very last thing that's on. Sometimes I think it was like near the end, but then there would be like another show on after it. There is apparently like a list because celebrities want to read a CBeebies bedtime story like really bad. Like,
I think it's
a
still
thing.
going.
It is. It's very strong. They really love getting Tom Hardy on it at the moment, because I think just all the mothers like to watch Tom Hardy read bedtime stories.
I was looking at it to like re-jog my memory, and the top one's Harry Styles.
Brilliant.
Which,
I've seen
didn't
that.
expect.
That became a meme. Because he
That's
was
probably why it's
like,
at the top then.
because like when it starts, he's like, "Hello, I'm Harry. This is my house," and everyone's like, "Why is he delivering it like he's delivering a GCSE French exam?" And I was like,
You might think that you might be underestimating how well children know the English language.
True. I mean, as well, I think what's interesting, because the way it's become a huge thing, they get huge celebrities to do them. Some of them are like not even British and probably don't even know what a CBeebies is, but they had Chris Evans, Captain America, sat there reading a bedtime story.
Oh my god.
About
that.
superheroes to little kids, and it's
That's kinda
crazy
cool.
how big it is. One of the ones that's one of my favorites is Orlando Bloom, because I love Orlando Bloom,
Oh my
as
gosh.
people know, and he read a story
Yeah.
about pirates, and I'm like, thank you, Orlando,
Yeah.
thank you for your service.
Amazing.
But I
It's, like,
think
related to
Bootstraps
what
Bill.
the movies have done.
I think when they started, I think it was generally like the presenters and sort of like just sort of lower rank, like, and now it's like a huge thing, and they get these like mega stars sat there reading books to little kids, and it's brilliant, and it's so clever because it's such a simple thing. It's such a
Is
simple
it all in,
idea.
like celebrities' houses as well? Or is it like just random
Uh,
like sets they already have prepared?
I I'm not sure. I think there are some of them that are definitely sets, but I think they may do some in celebrities' houses. I think it just depends on.
Yeah. I love the celebrity houses if they just started like having to decorate it to look like a CBeebies set.
It's like, right, we're gonna decorate the bedroom,
Yeah,
get
just
the bug bees in there, and
every
like,
stripy piece of fabric they have.
oh my god. But in all
Do
seriousness, they're a really clever idea because they're so simple yet so effective, and they really work for kids. And I think the thing is the celebrities have like a lot of fun because it's like not something that's like as deeply serious as their other work, and it's like a little bit of like an escape.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Just
what.
something different.
Yeah, it's something different. It's something like, oh, this is kind of sweet and kind of fun, and I'm reading stories to children on the telly. That's cool, and I love that. I think it's a really clever idea. So yeah, I think we've talked enough about CBeebies for a bit. We'll probably circle back towards the end, and we'll discuss with Phil. So let's talk about Nick Jr. Now, this is very specifically Nick Jr. UK, because obviously Nick is an American company, and I assume their idea of TV is probably quite different to what we have going on our TV. So this is Nick Jr. UK. Now they've had a bit of a weird like time. They have had a few songs, including Bedtime, Business, The Jimmer Jammers, Land of Dreams are some that we're gonna discuss today. They're what I remember. Well, two of them I definitely remember. They didn't have... So, Nick Jr. kind of would enter this strange thing of not quite having their own shows on. They would enter the Nick Jr. Classics realm. Originally, I think that used to be referred to as Noggin, which the Nick Jr. Classics stuff was mostly, like, British television programs, like kids ones, that were generally from somewhere from the 60s to the 90s. The scope was quite wide. Now, I think later on they did drop the classics. I do remember like being up kind of late as a little kid, and the only thing on like Nick Jr. was just Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom all night.
Oh god.
So I think they did enter an era of like having more modern shows on, but I personally remember the Nick Jr. Classics the most when I think of Nick Jr. at night. So I did put some shows up there from that era, and they included Rainbow, Paddington Bear, and the Wombles. And I didn't put many on there because, you know.
Yeah. Well, a lot of shows.
So it was a lot of shows, and I think a lot of them would be better suited to a different topic for a different day. Yeah. So, but what's the thoughts? What's the thoughts on the way that they dealt with
unnatural,
nighttime?
To be fair, I'd probably I don't think I'd be that like. It'd be quite interesting trying to go to bed and then suddenly there's like imagine like if the episode that happened to be on that night was like something really like something scary or something just random, like that would just like freak me out for no reason if I was a kid and not understanding things. Like I saw that Wombles episode, and I think watching that like just before bed would make us like be worried that I'd be carried away in the wind or something. So, I mean, it's not too nighttime themed, I don't think.
No, they weren't, because the shows that they chose, well, the shows that were there would have been on in the daytime in, like, the little children's, like, blocks that would be on, like, I think there used to be, like, they'd have maybe, like, some kids shows in, like, the morning or at lunch, and they would be, like, the shows, like, similar to the shows that were on Nick Jr. Classics, and then later on they might be some like children's blocks, but they would be more like your Blue Peter and Grange Hill and stuff, which thankfully were not on Nick Jr. Classics. Actually, you're trying to like chill and you end up watching Grange Hill.
I think when I actually was watching Nick Jr., because I'm a few years later from you. So I don't know why I said you that aggressively. You. But yeah, I was like watching it a few years later, and especially I was watching it a lot when my cousin, like who's 5 years younger, was little. So I remember it a lot more when it was the nighttime shows were more like actually like nighttime for shows.
Yeah.
Like it was just things like there were just like little stories and like animated things and like
they were a little less like random
more nighttime
assortment of
themed.
British kids shows. I do think it's interesting because like I do like a lot of the old shows. They used a lot of the stop motion ones, which stop motion is, if you're not scared of it, is quite a nice peaceful thing. But also a lot of people,
It is.
stop motion like enters like levels of uncanny for a lot of people. So
I
think I was one of those people.
now. Yeah. I've actually been watching a lot recently, like, because I'm starting to, I'm no longer scared of it, so I can actually enjoy the storytelling. But when I was, like, too young to comprehend, it was genuinely quite frightening, especially the Wallace and Gromit art style and, like, Chicken Run.
Same
I was very
here.
scared
Oh
of Chicken
gosh.
Run.
I think the scariest thing, like, for me, that probably was on Nick Jr. Classics was, and I wasn't scared of this show, but I think this would just be what I would, if I was thinking about the shows that were on, which one would come across to me as the scariest, was probably Rainbow, because Bungle's a bit of a funny-looking creature.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've heard people who have not really warmed to Bungle Bear.
Oh, Bungle. See, and I never really found Bungle scary. I was okay, but if you look at pictures of Bungle from, like, the beginning of Rainbow, like, the really early stuff, he's absolutely freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
I always found Zipper a lot scarier.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or just the concept of the zip mouth, I guess.
Zipping, they could just, like, shut his mouth by zipping it across.
Yeah, that was absolutely terrifying.
At least
Just
George
that,
was
like, imagine
wholesome.
someone could, like, make me just shut me up suddenly.
Well, one thing I was
Amazing
just going to
outcome.
quickly add about stop motion is that I wasn't a fan of stop motion, and I think the main reason for that is because I don't know if any of you remember Bagpuss.
Yes.
Yeah, that show was another show that freaked me out, and so I think that it was that show that put me off stop motion in general, because I used to just associate stop motion with Bagpuss all the time.
Yeah, like, you thought like you're like watching like something, you're watching Paddington, but you're like, Bagpuss is coming. Bagpuss is coming.
Bagpuss. And I'm like, yeah, it's
You just
definitely time for bed.
There's some
Just
funny
surprise
looking
that
characters in
every,
Bagpuss, to be fair. We've kind of established our thoughts on primarily the classics. They don't really have any shows that they sort of made for bedtime, like CBeebies does within the Night Garden and 64 Zoo Lane and that. But they did have some songs, and I think some of their songs are more memorable than CBeebies' ones. Like, I remember Jim Jammers, and I remember Land of Dreams.
Oh, I remember
100%.
both of them very well.
Yeah, the weird moon face just sticks in my brain forever.
It never leaves.
But yeah, I think they were just catchier. They were a little bit more, like, they were less calm, though, I would say. They weren't quite as calming.
Yeah. I think Land of Dreams was that song that I forgot the name of and I forgot the lyrics to, but I remember the tune, like, at the back of my head. Like, I've remembered it forever.
Yeah.
And then listening to it, I'm like, oh, that's where it's from. Oh, yeah. Like, but it's got some weird CGI going on.
It's definitely got dated CGI in the video, which CBeebies never really does, because they usually just show clips from their own shows, and or just the presenters, like, singing it to you with clips from their own shows, rather than, like, trying to make music videos out of it. And, like, Jim Jammers, like, doesn't contain, like, terrible CGI, so they're just kind of, like, dancing around them, and like they're like showing kids like actually brushing their teeth and stuff. But on Land of Dreams and its weird CGI, like, I used to be so confused by like the bubble things that came out of the kids like sleeping kids' head. I was like, oh my god,
it's like it was trying to make dreams seem like this fun and amazing thing.
Yeah,
but making it horrifying at the same time somehow.
it was definitely something.
But one thing I remember from when I was watching Jim Jammers, I know it's like so irrelevant, it's such a nitpicky thing, but a kid goes to bed with their glasses on and I'm like, buddy.
I remember that.
Buddy.
Oh yeah, the little kid.
It's like,
yeah,
I'm a glasses wearer, you're a glasses wearer, don't go to sleep in your glasses, you'll just roll over and like snap them.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm very scared.
like, no, don't do that. It's like when,
No.
and don't sleep in
Two kids
contact
don't
lenses
walk.
either. Just a heads up. Just go to sleep blind. You're gonna shut your eyes anyway. It doesn't matter. Don't keep your glasses on. Don't keep any contact lenses in your eyes when sleeping, please. Please.
My grandma's done that already. She has like multiple contact lenses in her eyeball.
Oh my god,
Oh
no, it's so like, it's like, because like they're not like the most, like they're not uncomfortable like per se, because like I'll be fine, but like after like you've worn them consistently for a few hours, they become
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and because they dry your eyes out, so if you fall asleep with them in, your eyes just lose all the moisture. You've got no moisture left in your eyes, so you're just like, ugh. So the other thing that Nick Jr. did try to do, didn't last as long, was a bedtime story.
Oh yeah.
What did we think of that?
Was that the
Uh,
Duncan James Arnie and Barney one?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't remember this
one of the things that I noticed is that the kids were getting, like, they were, look on screen, they didn't even try to look interested. They looked so bored and uninterested.
I think where it loses, I think as well, like having kids there, to me, it loses the effect. Because when
Yeah.
you've got like a group of kids, like I've always thought that the CBeebies ones, because it's just the celebrity and they're just reading a book to kids, it feels
Yeah.
almost more personal, like to that child. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like they're watching a show. It almost feels like somebody's telling me a story and I'm going to sleep now. Whereas I
Yeah.
feel like
the kids there.
I feel like when with the kids there, like looking disinterested, it doesn't quite have the same effect on the child
They're
sat
not
at
even
home
like
watching
looking.
it.
They're not even like looking at the person and looking bored. They're just like playing with the grass on the floor.
Yeah, they're like distracted by like the set.
facing the other direction.
I think they've done too much. What I think the reason why I think CBeebies is so successful with it is because it's so simple. It's such a simple idea. But I feel like Nick Jr. were like, let's have puppets, let's have kids in the room, and it's like, no, too much. Like, strip
Yeah.
it back. You didn't need
I
all
wonder
of
where
that.
those kids are today. Like,
It's like,
I wonder if they actually remember sitting with Duncan James. Like, they haven't had their, like, at the time, they'd probably be like, who is this dude? Like, and then
Yeah.
they think about it now, like, oh my god.
they're probably
I
like,
didn't even
who's
get
Duncan
excited that I
James?
was sitting next to Duncan James.
It's like, they're probably like, who's Duncan James?
Yeah.
To be fair, even I'm kind of like, who's Duncan James? Like, I barely know who that is. But like, I think I saw him in a this is gonna sound like bizarre, and like, he's the guy from Blue, isn't he?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
need to
he
double
is.
check. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I saw him in Rocky Horror
Oh, okay.
as Frankenfurter. I'm pretty sure he was in that, and I'm like, I've seen Duncan James in that outfit, and now I'm watching him read a bedtime story to little kids. Very
no.
different vibes. So I think just because I'm
But the same
conscious,
outfit.
no, thankfully, I think because I'm conscious that Bhav's computer's gonna die.
It's on 17%.
Okay, we're working with it here. So I think what we should do, because I think we are comparing and we are sort of talking about them, is which, if you had like kids, if you were a kid, what would you find more effective? Which channel would you gravitate to? Who do you think did what best?
I think for the actual shows, CBeebies is like actually definitely more recognizable for that. But like, I can't really remember any of the actual songs from it, like from remembering back then. But somehow I remember all of Nick Jr.'s, but none of the shows from Nick Jr.'s. So
Yeah, I'm the same. Definitely the same.
it's
Yeah, it's almost like the shows, because the shows I think are catered and like they seem to have been selected properly for CBeebies. It does feel like
Yeah.
that's more effective, and their bedtime stories, the way they're done, are just so simple and so easy that I think they have really succeeded there. I do agree that the songs on Nick Jr., they jam a little bit more. I do like The Time Has Come though, so I'll like, yeah. But I think like I'm more likely to be going, just close your eyes and you
Yeah.
will see a land of dreams. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably more likely going to be in my head than like anything
Yeah.
CBeebies did song wise. But I think CBeebies is just they're very good at like making it personal, and that's probably the effect of the BBC because of the BBC ethos of like to inform, educate, and entertain, and having to abide by very like strict, specific rules that the other channels don't have to do because they're not publicly funded. I think that's probably why CBeebies is done in such a specific way. Shout out to like CITV though, which just closes.
See ya.
The CITV just tunes out. It's like, bye. CBBC, to be fair, also kind of just tunes out, but they still have like presenters to at least be like, goodbye. CITV just goes, bye-bye. Like, peace out. See you at 6 a.m. tomorrow.
I swear I've been jump scared multiple times as a child by is it CTV or CITV?
CITV.
CITV just closing. Like,
Just goes.
doesn't it just go to like a black screen or whatever screen?
I think it just like
is
cuts
no
off
channel?
to like
Yeah.
CITV will return at like this time tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think I've had multiple times a jump scare. I don't know how many times it's actually happened. Like if it happens every single time it turns off or not. But I just have the memory of like watching a random show and then it just going like it's just the show ends and then it just goes boom.
Like,
Silence. And
Yeah.
it's just so like there's constant music throughout and all of the sounds and talking. And then it just sounds like, you know, when you flip the switch on the TV and it just goes silent.
Yeah.
It's that with just a ton of text and I don't know what the text was.
No.
And I was just like, the TV died.
The TV is gone.
What must
Yeah.
I do now?
What does one do when the TV just logs off and is like, bye?
Yeah.
It is interesting though, and I think circling back to what we were saying, I think CBeebies overall had a better bedtime hour and probably continues to still have better bedtime hours.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because I definitely remember the songs better from Nick Jr. But that's about it. Like I did love Nick Jr. classics because I loved watching all the old shows, but I think as a bedtime hour, it's just not as effective as.
Yeah, to put
And I
kids
think-
to actually sleep.
The only reason I ended up watching it quite a bit is because it was on later and longer than CBeebies, because CBeebies closes at like 7 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think if I had kids, I'd definitely prefer them to watch CBeebies over Nick Jr.'s bedtime, like from our generation.
Yeah.
from our generation, I don't know what Nick Jr. does now. I don't really fully know what CBeebies does now, except for I think some of the shows are like. I think the songs are the same, and like In the Night Garden's still there. They update them
Yeah.
like slightly, like instrumentally, but they're basically the same song kind of thing. But
I would have thought they would have rewritten it by now.
no, I believe the time has come. Still, I'm gonna go watch CBeebies. Like if I tune in now, it should be finishing soon,
You will
and I'll be able to
finish the
check.
podcast. We're all just live watching.
We're all
CBeebies
watching
in
just
a
to
chat
check.
after this.
Are they gonna sing "The Time Has Come"? I would be curious.
No, that's the wrong song. That's the wrong song. That's like Land of
See,
Dreams.
this is evidence that that one's a little bit more catchy.
In the Night Garden's on right now. I'm not joking.
Oh my god.
No joke. In the Night Garden's currently on CBeebies. That's funny. I might leave it on Watch Live now as we're like wrapping this up, just to see what happens. Just to see if they sing the song at the end. It's the same. So I think we're pretty much on the page of CBeebies is probably the better bedtime hour. If we had kids, we'd probably be
Yeah.
like, yeah, the CBeebies bedtime hour, specifically from our childhood. Not
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
not judging them now, don't know what they're like now. But Nick Jr. did have banging songs. So, yeah.
It
So I think that concludes this is our first proper episode, so yay. You know, feel free to interact with it.
Just interact with
Just
it.
interact,
Just interact
with it.
with it.
And that means like, you know, talk to us on Twitter. What is the Twitter? It's like at RememberPod6. So have a look. It'll be linked anyway. And yeah, interact with it on YouTube. I'm gonna still trying to get it on Spotify. I'll work that out. That's all from us. And I think we're done. So thanks everybody for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.